All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Living the Dream podcast. On today's show, we have Ron Galloway, who has lived a life, to say the least. He's a frequent public speaker. He is a principal of mythros, which he'll tell us more about, I'm sure. He had the first film to ever premiere in the U.S. Capitol building, and he also got made fun of on The Daily Show for 7 straight minutes, which I thought was cool. He said it wasn't so cool.
No, it's not cool. I was down at Disney World and all of a sudden my phone started blowing up and people were like, dude. And I was like, what? And they're like, you got trashed on the Daily Show last night. I was like, oh, what? They just say something real quick? And they're like, no, it was 7 minutes of you getting trashed. Because at the time I had made a film about Walmart and it was actually a pro Walmart film. And they sort of took, the Daily Show sort of took umbrage with that and laid into me, and unfortunately it's still online. The only upside to it is they used a clip from when I was on CNN, and the great thing about, if you ever go on CNN, or if any of your audience ever goes on CNN, the great thing about CNN is they have the best makeup artists in the entire world. I never looked so good. So it's so I just go back and look at it sometimes and go, yeah, I pretty much peaked then. That was it. That's as good as it gets. And it's because the makeup artists were so great. But yeah, I mean, what I wanted to come on and talk about today, this is about, I mean, your show is about, living your dream. And I actually did mine. I've, as I mentioned in the pre-show, I wrote a bucket list, got it done by the time I was 33, wrote another bucket list, got it done. And so, I mean, I took a little bit longer. I'm almost 60 now, but I'm working on my third bucket list now. And what I've learned is that, I've learned to write it down, but what I've learned, the big thing I've learned being 60 years old, here's all the wisdom I can impart, is that you can create your own world. You literally can create your own world by thinking it into existence. And when you die, that world dies with you. But while you're alive, your world, the world that you've created, the car you have, the house you have, the work you do, the music you listen to, it also intersects with other people's worlds that they've created. But for you, for yourself, no one else is really in charge of your world. You create. And this is actually in the movie The Counselor. A drug kingpin actually tells somebody this. He's like, you created this world, now you have to live in it. But I'm a strong believer in thinking your world into existence. And I'm a strong believer that it can be done. Steve Jobs used to call it poking the universe. He's like, he said one of the biggest things he ever learned is that you can poke the universe and actually make things happen. The problem is, as I see it, is that not enough people do enough poking. Not enough people try. People tend to choose inaction over action. And to me, inaction is death. Inaction is almost literally a sin. It almost doesn't matter what you do when you act, as long as you act. And that's what I find people aren't doing, especially over the last, couple of years. And you talked about the company I'm with now, mythros. That's what we're trying to do, is help people act, because people are sort of frozen over the last year and a half. Like, what am I going to do? And, jobs are going away, inflation's going up. People are afraid to move. And my attitude is, it's the greatest time. I'm almost 60. It's the greatest time in my 60 years on the planet to start a business or start something creative. There are literally no barriers to anything right now. I mean, your show has worldwide distribution, all right? All over the world, you have worldwide distribution. 20 years ago, that was not the case. Your iPhone has a camera on it that can film movies that you can then put on YouTube or Amazon or other places. There's really no limit to the things you can do now. And so what sort of frustrates me is people that aren't taking advantage. People think things are bad right now. And I'm like, no, things have actually never been better if you just do something. and you can literally, I've proven it, you can literally will things into existence. I had absolutely no background in making a film, none at all. Didn't know what I was doing. In fact, on the first day that we were shooting the film, first day on set, I turned to my cinematographer, my director, you say action. That's how little I knew about that, and have subsequently made three movies. We're living in a period now where you can literally do almost anything you want to do. And you look at all the creators on YouTube, some of the things on YouTube, some of the photography I see on YouTube, like I watch sailing channels a lot. Some of the photography on those channels is better than photography you see in a movie, right? Yeah. So for the individual, there's never been a better time to do something creative. If you want to do something creative, for instance, when you buy a computer, a Macintosh, or even your phone, the audio recording capabilities on that are so far beyond what the Beatles ever could have dreamed of. The Beatles recorded on terrible analog equipment, and they still were the Beatles. You have a digital in your pocket. You've got a digital recording studio that 10 years ago would have cost $500,000. People have advantages now that I just don't think that they're using, and pretty much any dream that you can think up, as long as it's, if you're dreaming that you want to be president of Russia, well, maybe that's not going to happen, but within reason, things that you want to do artistically or creatively or in business or, with work, which is what I do, is helping people with businesses. Anything can be done. You can start a business now. It's so amazing to me that in roughly, and I did it just to test it out, in less than 2 hours, you can have a business with worldwide distribution. You can have an LLC, right? You can have a tax ID number. You can have a website. You can have worldwide distribution of your product on Shopify or whatever it is. Anyway, anybody can create a business a worldwide business in less than 2 hours. I mean, it's unbelievable the opportunities that people have, and the frustration I have with people today. Like, you're out doing something, you're poking the universe, you're taking action. The frustration I have is with people that don't take action. It's did you ever see this movie called Collateral with Jamie Foxx and Tom Cruise?
I have not seen this movie. No.
Okay, in the movie, Jamie Foxx is like this taxi driver, and he always dreams about having his own limo service, right? But he doesn't do anything about it. And then one night, Tom Cruise gets in his cab, and turns out Tom Cruise is a hitman, and he's making Jamie Foxx drive him around town one night while he kills 6 or 7 people. And what the movie delineates is the character of Tom Cruise, who's a man of action, with the character of Jamie Foxx, who's a man of inaction and who's never going to realize his dreams. And during the course of the movie, their roles switch, and Jamie Foxx starts taking action. He starts taking agency over his own life. Tom Cruise starts taking less action, winds up dying. But at the end of the movie, Jamie Foxx has changed his entire life in an evening by simply taking action and not sitting back in his cab and staring at a picture of the Mercedes limo that one day he's going to buy, because, you think it's going to happen. And then one day you're my age, right? Yep. And you look back and you're like, oh man, I wish I'd done that. And the thing that I'd always been, my dad told me this, my late father, that's him right there. My late father told me one time, he was like, it's like, I sure wish I had not gone to all those meetings that I just absolutely had to go to, because he didn't get to do the other things he wanted to do. So what I told myself early on in life was that I was going to get done early that the things I wanted to do, I was going to do, so that when I got to be the age that I'm roughly at now, 60, I wouldn't have any regrets. Because right now at 60, like there's certain things you can't do. I can't ski the really hard slopes, on ski runs anymore. Just can't do it. My body won't let me. I'll hurt something. I can't play tennis like I used to. There's just things I can't do, but I don't have many regrets. But I have so many friends who have regrets, who are like, yeah, I wish I'd done this. And I tell my son, I'm like, don't wish you had done stuff. I was like, I'm like, people say it all the time, but don't be afraid to fail. I mean, A-Rod got paid whatever he got paid, $150 million by the time it wound up at the end. He got paid $150 million by failing 7 out of 10 times he went to bat, right? You're gonna fail. But people seem frozen right now because they think things are awful. And I'm like, no, it's the best time to be creative or start a business in the history of the world. It's never been a better time to do it. And it's never been a better time, if you want to express yourself creatively, to express yourself creatively almost in any medium. I mean, my Instagram is full of people's art Instagrams where they're showing off their pictures. Or a lot of times on YouTube, I like to watch artists painting. I mean, it'll take 2 hours, but you sit there and watch them painting a watercolor, and you can learn from it or just watch it, or you can try and copy what they're doing. But that didn't exist years ago. The reason there's so many amazing guitar players right now is because everybody's learning on YouTube how to play all of Eddie Van Halen's guitar solos. It's the greatest time. Everybody's scared right now, but it's the greatest time ever to do the things that people, in general, people want to express themselves creatively or express themselves in business. And right now, there's never been a better time to do either, because you can do both today. You don't have to get permission from anybody. Did you get permission before you started your show?
Absolutely not.
You didn't. You didn't. You have a worldwide show that you got nobody's permission to do. Somebody will be watching this show in Santiago de Compostela, Spain, and you don't know that, but they're gonna. And it's because you took action and did it. And, you have a worldwide TV show now. So it's, like I said, it's, people come on your show and they talk about, what they want to achieve and everything. And I'm here to tell you, I've done what I wanted to do. I mean, my main goals were, when I started, was my parents, were elderly, and I wanted to make sure when they were leaving the world that they left the world okay, that they didn't want everything, and that they were, safe and happy and left in a good way. That happened. I also wanted to have children. And so I wanted to get my parents, when they left, I wanted them to have a good leaving. And when my children were born, I wanted children, and I wanted to raise them well. And those were my two big things. And they're done. I'm actually an empty nester as of about a month ago. So, which is why I'm on my third bucket list, because I'm like, all right, I kind of did everything now. But my point is, I thought up all these crazy things to do, which there would be no chance of doing. I want to make a movie. I want to be on CNN. I want to write a book. I want to be a stockbroker. I want to be a public speaker, all these nutty things that I had no experience in doing. I did because I took action and willed it to be so. And I created a world. Where those things happen. And it's also very important, I believe, to, like if you want a thing, like Jamie Foxx wanted that Mercedes, like if you want something, let me put it this way. I used to write down on a Post-it note how much money I wanted to make in a year, and I would put it above my shaving mirror. And at the end of the year, every time, I would wind up being close to that number, because I would see that number every day, and my brain subconsciously would have me do the things that would bring that number into reality. You know what I mean?
I know exactly.
So I think it's real important too, I mean, you have goals, you have dreams, but I think it's also super important to have visual representations of your dreams around you, like in your environment, in your room. Like, if you want to do something with a guitar, I think it's good for you to like have the guitar in your room where you can see it. So I think you should have things in your environment that you know that coerce you into, or coerce your brain into doing the things you want to do. And if your dream is to start a business, as I said, it takes less than 2 hours now to start a worldwide business. You can be legal, have a tax ID number, have a bank account, have a website. You can do everything you want. Think up a product. You can soup to nuts. You can do the entire thing in 2 hours. That's never happened before. And it's sort of interesting to me because my son, who's at college, he's at UGA, who's going to stomp on Kentucky tomorrow. Sorry, Kentucky, you got no shot. Got no shot. Anyway, he's at UGA now, and he's like, well, I don't know what I should, major in. And I'm like, it's not so much what you major in as it is having a large skill set of a lot of things, because the world is changing so fast now that you have to be nimble. You have to be able to jump from one thing to another, and one of the biggest examples of that was, it used to be, probably before you were born, MySpace was the big thing. You had to have a MySpace page, right?
Yep.
Boom, that's gone, and now it's kind of like, oh, you have to have a Facebook page. No, you don't. You got to have an Instagram page. No, you really don't. You got to have a TikTok page. Okay, that is sort of the thing right now. But it's like things change so fast. If you have a large body of knowledge and you keep up with the change, then, like I said, you have every advantage in the world. You don't need, I think higher education is in for a bit of a shakedown.
Yes, because Ron, talk about college, please.
Yes. Well, I think they're in for a bit of a shakedown because people are realizing, let's say you're a programmer who writes Python. Yep. You know what I mean? No employer is going to ask you what university you Python, right? What they're going to do is give you a set of problems to solve with Python, right? It's, do you have the skill or don't you have the skill? And if you have the skill, boom, yeah. Nobody, Bill Gates seemed to do okay without college. Steve Jobs seemed to do okay without college. Mark Zuckerberg seemed to do all right without college.
Yep.
Tom Brady did go to college. I'll give him that. Tom Brady went to Michigan, so he did go to college. But Tom Brady's another one. If you think about Tom Brady was drafted way down. I mean, he was deep, right? Mm-hmm. And when he came out of college, Tom Brady was not Tom Brady, but he literally thought himself into what he is today. He dreamed the Tom Brady he wanted to be, and he became that guy. You may not remember Cary Grant, the actor, but Cary Grant's real name was Archibald Leach, and he decided he wanted to be a dashing actor named Cary Grant, who was a movie star, and he willed that into reality. Nobody gave him permission to do that. He pictured the world he wanted, and then he willed his world, into reality. And
Ron, I guess my biggest
I know I went off there for a while, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. My biggest question about that is, I feel like I'm gonna have a lot of listeners, a lot of people my age who hear that, and, they've read it in like success books or read it, whatever. But
don't read success books unless I wrote it.
But they don't.
Then read it.
They don't believe that concept. What would you say to that person?
Yeah, it's like if you want to go out with somebody and you never believe they'll go out with you, you're never going to know until you ask, and then boom, you wind up and you're married to them. You've created a world that they're a part of, and your world has intersected with theirs. But what's the one thing that is required of that, or is required of anything that I've been talking to you about? It's taking action. It's not sitting there and reading books. It's taking an action, almost any action, understanding you're going to fail. I have a friend who is like out in the dating world now, and I'm like, don't worry about it. You're going to get turned down by 90% of the young ladies that you ask out. Don't worry about it. Every failure just means you're that much closer to getting it done. Don't worry about it. But nothing at all is going to happen if you don't act, if you don't try. What frustrates me more than anything else is people that just don't try. I mean, they'll sit there and they'll watch their Twitter feed all day, but they won't go and write 1,000 words. They want to be an author, but they won't write. It's people ask me, I've written 3 books. People ask me, how do you write books? I'm like, you write a book. You sit down and you start typing. How do you start a YouTube channel? You sign up, you ask guests on, you start doing it. None of that would have happened. I mean, you could very easily be doing something else, but this is what you chose to do. This is the world you chose to create, and you created it by taking action. That's the thing that people don't do. There's another movie. I'll give you another example from another movie. There's this movie called The Edge with Anthony Hopkins and Alec Baldwin. And they're trapped out in the wilderness and a bear's chasing them, right? And Alec Baldwin just wants to give up. And Anthony Hopkins is like, no, we have to take action and do something. And so it's an argument between the two. But in that movie, it shows you in that context, inaction literally is death. They just give up and let the bear kill them. But no, they wound up taking action. They trap the bear, they kill the bear, and they succeed. But it's only by taking agency. Agency is an interesting word. It's by taking control of your own actions is what I mean by that. So for young people listening to this, it's like, doesn't really matter what you do, pick something, just do something, because you never know where it'll lead. I'll give you an example. As was mentioned in the intro, I made a movie, and I made it on Walmart. And I actually decided I was going to make the movie one day. I was just sitting in my office, and I was like, I really don't like my job. I'm going to make a movie. I'm going to make a business movie. I'm going to make a movie about Walmart. And before I even had the movie, before the movie was even filmed, 2 weeks after I made that decision, which I believe was the right decision, 2 weeks after I made that decision, I was on CNN talking about a movie that I hadn't even made yet. I'd shot like some film, but it's like the universe, once I started doing the things that I was supposed to do, things started happening to give me a hand. But here's the rest of the story. When I made the film, I was on, lots of network TVs, and I got a call from speaking agents. Got calls from speaking agents, and never in my life had I really thought about being a public speaker. But they were like, "Do you want to come speak?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Do y'all pay? Do you get paid for like speaking? People like Peyton Manning get $100,000 speech, right? I didn't know that at the time. I was like, "You'll give me $40 to speak?" Okay. But I didn't know you could do that. And I have been a public speaker for the last 15 years. My point being, if I had not taken an action in one direction to make a movie about, of all things, Walmart, I would not be a fairly renowned speaker on healthcare right now. That's typically, I either talk about, finance or healthcare, but because I took action on a Walmart movie going this way, it led off down this other path going another way. And here I am in front of, 5,000 people. And it's like that Talking Head song. It's like, how did I get here? I really do. I'm on stage sometimes and I'm like, what the actual hell am I doing here? Do these people know that I don't know what I'm doing? Nobody please tell them I have no idea what I'm doing. They think I'm a public speaker. I'm playing the role of somebody who's a public speaker, but I got here by doing, I had a job I didn't like, decided to make a movie about Walmart, which led me down this other path that I had no idea at all was going to happen. It's sort of like Apple, when they released the Apple Watch, people kind of laughed at it at first until Apple started getting all these letters about people using it as a health device. And now that's primarily the focus of the Apple Watch. Now, if you look at its marketing, it started on one thing and then wham, it just went another way. That's the way life is. You don't have to start taking action on exactly what it is you want to do, but you need to be doing something, because life has a tricky way of leading you into what you're supposed to be doing. That's what's interesting about life. And I'm old enough to say that. It's hard to see that when you're 20 years old or 18 years old. But when you're my age, you're like, man, it is really weird the way life sort of works out like it's supposed to. And things that you think were maybe disasters actually turned out to be like some of the best things that your younger viewers, is path that you want to achieve and for fun, and they're selling paintings for $5,000 a pop. They had no idea that was going to happen, but all of a sudden, and they were just kind of showing off their little paintings for fun, and all of a sudden they're a professional painter. And the circumstances that exist in the world right now with technology allow these type things to happen. The type of things I'm talking about doing would have been impossible 20 years ago. It really was harder to live your dream 20 years ago. It really, really was, because I was 40 then, right? It was harder. Now it's not. It's like, I want to make a movie. Okay, I'm going to make a movie. Steven Soderbergh, the guy that did Ocean's 11 and Aaron Brockovich, I think 3 of his last 7 movies have been filmed on an iPhone 7. I mean, they're on Netflix. He filmed them on an iPhone, right? It's like, your iPhone is, or your Samsung device. I don't want to be, but your phone is just an immensely powerful tool that can be taken advantage of, which we didn't have 20 years ago. It is possible now for you to go out with your friends on a weekend and shoot a horror film and put it up on YouTube and have it make a bunch of money. It's possible for you to put a webcam, out by a bird feeder and have 50,000 people watching that. I mean, it's crazy what is possible now, but you've got technology has progressed to the point where more people are able to live their dreams than they used to be. And I'll give you one more example of this. Look at the Kindle. Everybody wanted to write a book. Everybody's always wanted to write a book, but there are always the big 5 publishing houses that were the gatekeeper, until Amazon came along with the Kindle, which people couldn't figure out what to do with. But then when Kindle publishing came out, it's like, boom, you have authors, lots and lots of authors. The lady that wrote 50 Shades of Grey has made tens of millions of dollars from a self-published book. The Martian. And then there's a great example. The guy that wrote The Martian, the book The Martian, which became a movie, right? Mm-hmm. The guy that wrote that was actually just doing it for fun as a series of blog posts. It was not a book, but he wrote so many blog posts. His friends were like, will you just make that an ebook so that we don't have to keep scrolling down the page? And he's like, well, okay. And he made it an ebook. And 2 years later, Matt Damon's starring in the movie.
Yep.
That this guy wrote down. It came out of here. He poked the universe. He took action, and from his typewritten words, from his little idea, hundreds of people got employed to make a movie, which then millions of people saw. That wouldn't happen 20 years ago. It's absolutely, completely not even possible now, but probable if you take action. But if you sit back and you're passive, it won't work. But it's like, if you're a musician, I mean, look at that guy in Journey, the lead singer of Journey. They found him on YouTube, right? I mean, it's anything can happen now. I mean, there are no barriers, and that's what people should understand. There's the only thing holding you back really is your own frame of mind and your own not visualizing what you. I think here's the biggest failing. Before you really take action, you sort of need to visualize what your world is that you want to create, just kind of in general. And then once you do that, you take action in one way or another. And if you've created in your mind a strong enough vision of the world that you want, telling you what, it's weird how things come together and happen. There have been people I want to meet, I'd be like, wouldn't it be great if I met so and so? And because I became a public speaker, I wound up being in a green room with that person. It's like, holy mackerel. It's like all my life, I came up in the era of Herschel Walker, at the University of Georgia, who's the greatest athlete who basically ever lived. And Herschel Walker, I'm like, wouldn't it be great? I went to Georgia Tech, and Herschel was over at University of Georgia. But I was like, I've always admired him. I admire anybody that can do 2,000 push-ups in a day. Yep. Anyway, I'm like, he's like the greatest guy ever. And I wound up in Texas in a green room with that guy because I decided at some point to make a goofy Walmart movie. I'm in a green room with Herschel Walker. But none of it would happen if I didn't just start making a little bit of, taking a little bit of movement, not even a specific movement, but just doing something. That's the thing that frustrates me the most is I think if you don't take action, you're dooming. Is that a word? Yeah, I guess it's a word. You're dooming yourself if you don't take action. If you take action, might not work at first, but it ultimately will. I've seen it. I'm old enough to have seen these things. It happens. I've seen people say that they're going to do something, and I'm like, well, that's the craziest thing in the whole wide world. And then, they make it happen. I was telling you in the pre-interview, I was in the grocery store today, and how they play music in the grocery store, and two of the artists whose music was being played, I've actually had meals with. And that never would have happened unless I'd now I'm not sure that's something to brag about, that you know people that make grocery store music, whatever. But anyway, my point is, if I hadn't taken action, then none of it would have happened. And I'm sitting here in a little dinky town in Georgia, right? I'm not in a major media center. I'm in Georgia in a little town, but we do have this thing, the internet, which I'm actually still surprised that my town has, because generally Augusta, Georgia is the last place to get. I'm still surprised we have cable TV. Like, really? We have that now? Wow. But if I from Augusta, Georgia can make these wackadoodle things happen, and I'm a knucklehead, right? And if I can make these things happen, other people can do it too, because other people have their act together way more than I do. I can guarantee you that. Just ask my ex-wife. But it's like the important thing, and obviously the one point I'm trying to get across is do something. Just do something. It's not, you can read things in books and that's fine, but I can write a whole book for you right now and it's got 2 words: do something. Do something. Just do. It's like Yoda. I can't remember exactly what it was Yoda said. Is like, do or do not, I think is essentially what he said. It's like, get it done or just, fade out into the woodwork. But what you don't want to do is wind up being a person my age, 60 years old, wishing you had tried to do something. I'm lucky and that I tried to do a lot of the things I wanted to do. I failed at 90% of them, but I still tried. So I know it's like, all right, well, I tried to make good movies. They really sucked, but at least I tried, And so I'm not sitting here at my age wondering whether or not that's going to happen or, it's like, I wish I'd tried to be a public speaker. No, I made it happen. Or it's like, it's just like lots of different things. What you don't want when you get older is regrets. And the only way to avoid regrets is to take action. And you don't have to have, when you're young, you don't have to have a specific goal. I sort of have this working theory that before the age of 25, you really ought not, unless you're going to be a doctor or something super specific like that, you really ought not pressure yourself into, into saying exactly I'm going to do this. Because, give yourself to 25 to really figure out where your mind is at and what you want to do. But then go do it. Don't sit back and think about it and complain that, you have things stacked against you, because you don't. You have nothing stacked against you. It's absolutely, the people I see on YouTube or some of the artists I hear on Spotify. A friend of mine is 40, I can't say her age. A friend of mine is in her 20s and quite beautiful. But she started a band. She always wanted to be in a band, and she started a band called Brandy and the Butcher. And Brandy and the Butcher is doing great now, and she's like, I want to be in a punk band. Okay. And she, for a living, sells wine to Costco, right? But she's like, I'm this age, 20. Yep. I'm this age, and I'm going to be in a punk band. And damned if she isn't in a punk band and doing great now. And getting played in Britain and getting played in Australia. It's pretty amazing what you can do if you get out and try. She had everything stacked against her. She's in Columbia, South Carolina, which is not a hotbed of the music world. And she put together a fabulous punk band because she's like, that's the world I want to live in. That's the world I'm creating for myself. I'm going to do that. And it's there. It's very weird how it works. The universe loves it. The universe rewards you if you try. The universe punishes you if you just sit back and play Sudoku all day long.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel that. And so honestly, that was great. I
told you, man, it's like when you have me on, it's like those DJs who used to put on Stairway to Heaven when they needed to when they wanted to go outside and smoke a cigarette, or they'd put on Layla or something, some long song. That's how I am in interviews. It's just wind me up and let me start, man, because I'm old. And I don't have a lot of wisdom, but I do have a lot of experiences. And I've seen what works and doesn't work. And the one common denominator amongst the things that work is the fact that you do something, that you take action. You can read self-help books, and I've read them all, and they're great. But until you act, doesn't matter. You don't want to be. Time flies. Time really flies. You don't want to be a 60-year-old person wishing you had done something. Try it. Fail if you want. I failed at making movies. The movies did okay in a business sense, but I know artistically they suck, but I tried and I got them done. And I'm not wondering whether or not I'm a great filmmaker. I know I'm not, I figured it out all by myself.
That is something I want to ask you about. I know a lot of people have some lower self-esteem, lower self-confidence, and failure is really scary because it really hurts them emotionally.
Failure is your friend. Keep failure right here. Failure is your friend. When I'm on stage, to them, I will say this. I suffer from massive, horrible stage fright, unbelievable stage fright, like paralyzing stage fright. But you know what? I get up there and do it because I think of failure as sitting on my shoulder right here. Failure is my friend. I'm going to take it with me. I'm not going to let it stop me. Look, I get on stage with this face. You know what I mean? It's like, but it's like I suffer from massive, massive stage fright, but I get up there and do it anyway. And do I fail? Sometimes. Probably about 10% of the time, I bomb. About another 30% of the time, they're okay. But most of them are good. And I'm glad that I got up there and did it once I'm through. But I'm terrified to do it each and every time I go on stage. And I've been on stage more than 1,000 times. Every time I'm scared. You know who throws up before she goes on stage? Adele. Adele has a bucket on the side of the stage that she throws up in before she goes on stage. Maybe not anymore. She hadn't been on stage in forever. But anyway, Adele gets paralyzing stage fright. It's and I'm not, and what I'm using stage fright for here is like as a metaphor for low self-esteem, right? It's like when I go on stage, when you get up in front of people, that's about as vulnerable as you can be, right? It's like you're up in front of people and they can smell fear. And if you're doing bad, they will laugh at you or start checking their Twitter feed or talking amongst themselves. You know, it's audiences aren't polite. You can fail very publicly and it gets you on a personal level, like when you bomb. But you know what? Everybody bombs. There's a great film called Comedian with Jerry Seinfeld where it shows him working out his act, joke by joke. And he'll go show up in a tiny comedy club and everybody's like, oh my God, it's Jerry Seinfeld. And he'll have like 2 jokes written on a sheet of paper and he'll try them out. And everybody will be like, man, you really suck. They'll tell him that to his face. And this is Jerry Seinfeld. All right. But he knows that failure is your friend. And I actually stole the little on your shoulder thing from the late Norm Macdonald. He had bad stage fright too. And he just pictured when he went on stage that failure was right here on his shoulder with him. And you're taking failure with you. And I mean, you carry it with you, but more often than not, you won't fail because the universe loves somebody who tries. It really does. There's an old saying, it's fortune favors the bold, which basically means, you know, you literally make your own luck by doing something. So even if somebody has very low self-esteem, they can still act. They still have the ability to act. And like I said, oftentimes I fail in a very public way. And I've gone on major TV shows before and not done well in front of my kids, in front of hundreds of thousands of people. And it's not a good feeling, but you know what? I'm still here. I seem to live through that, you know. A-Rod seemed to survive striking out 7 out of 10 times that he went to bat, you know. He's still there and he's got $150 million and he's broadcasting the Sunday night game, which is every broadcaster's dream. So, I mean, it's just push failure and self-esteem, low self-esteem aside. And these things that you do, let me put it this way, getting on stage, you know, as many times as I have done, has not raised my self-esteem. If anything, it's like brought it down a little bit because it's like, it's made me fail when otherwise I would not have failed, right?
Yep.
Which sort of brings you down. It's a bad feeling when you bomb, but it's a fabulous feeling when you do okay, and when people want to come up and talk to you, but nothing's ever going to happen. I came to a moment in my life right before my first speech. It was at the Swan Hotel down in Disney World, and I thought somebody hired me. It was the International Association of Refrigerated Warehousing, right? And they were like, Ron, will you come speak for us? I'm like, sure. And I'm like, well, that's going to be about 5 people in that room. The International Association of Refrigerated Warehousing.
Yep.
Well, that's a big, awesome organization, but I didn't know it. So I walked into the room, opened the door, and there's hundreds of people there. I was prepared for 10, 15 people, right? And I was like, okay, I'm running away. I literally was that close to just taking off and running and saying, no, I'm not kidding. I was like, and you know, nobody would have shot me if I had done it. It just would have been, they would have said, oh, Mr. Galloway had some travel problems. He missed his plane or something like that.
Yeah.
But that was a pivotal moment in my life. And rather than run, which is really, really what I wanted to do, I mean, I had a little voice inside me saying, no, you're actually supposed to go up there. And I was like, ugh. And I went up there and I heard later that it wasn't that particularly good of a speech, but I did it. All right. And, you know, people politely applauded, thank God. But then, you know, I kept doing it. People asked me back. I kept doing it. I repeated it. I got more reps in. And I got better at it, and I've made a living out of it for the last, for the last 15 years, even though I'm easing back on it now. But but like I said, none of it would have happened. I was at that pivotal moment where it would have been just fine if I'd taken off. I could have gone off and kept doing what I was doing, which at the time was being a stockbroker, right? Which I hated with every fiber of my being. I hated it, but I could have kept doing it and everything would have been fine. But I was like, no, act. And I got up and did that, and it changed my life. And I've been everywhere. I feel as though I've met everybody. I've gone to towns. I've wound up in towns like Muth, Michigan, that I'd never even heard of, which wound up being fascinating towns. It's like I've had all these experiences, in hundreds of towns, probably 3,000 plane rides that I never would have had if I had not walked through that door. I mean, I could have walked the other way and it would have been fine, right? And I could have kept doing what I was doing, but I always would have wondered what would have happened if I'd actually gone on and got on stage. And now I know. I know for a fact what happened when I went and got on stage. When I went and tried to be a filmmaker, I made films, but they were bad. I was not good at it. Okay. I failed. Blow to the old self-esteem. But then I tried public speaking, which I had no experience in at all, and which to this day terrifies me. But I went up there and did it. And it's been a fantastic life. The last 15 years I've had, that's the reason I run out of stuff to put on my bucket list, because things wind up happening to me on the road that you just can't believe happen. It's like, how am I at the World Series, or it's like, look, I'm at Fenway Park. How did I get to Fenway Park? I've been to most of the baseball stadiums because I've been speaking in the town where the baseball stadiums are, right?
Oh.
But I wouldn't have had any of those experiences at all if I'd let my fear overtake me and walked away from that first speech.
Oh yeah.
Is that a good answer?
That's a great answer.
There you go. That's my answer. I'm sticking with that answer.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, on that note, Ron, I think that's all we got. That's all the time we have on the podcast.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. And I just want to remind everybody, please, it doesn't have to be perfect when you do something, but just do something. And I'm Ron Galloway. My company is mythrus. And please come visit us if you want to. We help businesses kind of get going. And but thank you for your time. And I hope you have me on again. It was fun.
Yeah, no, for sure. We'll definitely have you on again. And I appreciate you coming on. If you were listening to Ron today and you were like, I kind of need him to give me a kick in the butt so I could take some action, hit him up, go contact him at mythros. And just make the connections and literally do something. Do anything after listening.
Do something, do anything. I mean, it's the universe will reward you.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, on that note, the first thing you can do is go like and subscribe to this podcast on Apple.
Yes.
Go do that and then do something, contact me, and we'll get you going. All right. Thank you guys so much. Ron, thank you so much.
It was a pleasure, dude.
Awesome. We're out.
All right.